It's 3 in the morning. You're awake, not because of noise or discomfort, but because of a thought that won't leave you alone. I've been faithful. I've been obedient. I've tithed when it hurt. I've prayed. I've trusted. So why am I still here? Here, staring at the ceiling, calculating which bill can wait another week, wondering if this month you'll finally have margin or if you'll be right back in the same anxious cycle you've been trapped in for years. You don't say this out loud. You don't post it. You don't even pray it clearly, because naming it feels like betrayal. But the question sits in your chest like a stone. If faith is real, why does my financial reality feel so spiritually invisible? Let me tell you what's happening. You've been lied to, not by God, not by Scripture, but by a religious culture that taught you that obedience alone guarantees material stability. You were told that if you just believed hard enough, gave faithfully enough, trusted purely enough, provision would follow like a divine algorithm. That if you avoided certain sins and showed up to certain services, your finances would eventually align with your devotion. And because you believed that lie, you've spent years confused, privately ashamed, silently wondering if you're doing something wrong, or if God has simply chosen not to bless you the way He blesses others. Here's the truth Scripture actually teaches, and it's not comforting, it's confronting. Ecclesiastes 9:11 says, "The race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to them all." That's not poetry. That's reality. Faithfulness does not exempt you from uncertainty. Obedience does not override economics. Prayer does not replace planning. You were never promised that devotion would make you financially immune. You were promised that wisdom, when applied with discipline and structure, creates conditions where blessing can be sustained. Proverbs 13:11 makes this unbearably clear. Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say wealth comes to the prayerful. It doesn't say provision appears to the faithful. It says increase comes to those who build it slowly, consistently, systematically. Chaos repels blessing. Order attracts it. That's not motivational. That's law. So here's your first command. Stop lying to yourself about why you're struggling. Stop blaming your income. Stop spiritualizing your disorder. Stop pretending that if you just pray harder, give more, or trust deeper, that money will suddenly start making sense. Faith is not the problem. Your financial structure is. You've been taught to wait on God, to do what He already gave you the wisdom and authority to steward. And while you've been waiting, you've been bleeding, emotionally, financially, generationally. What's coming in the next 3 blocks is not inspiration, it's revelation. You're going to see, step by step, how Scripture describes a financial system that most believers have never been taught. You're going to see why faithful people stay stuck, not because they lack faith, but because they've never aligned their faith with financial order. You're going to see what happens when trust is expressed through structure instead of passivity. And by the end, you will not wonder why you've struggled. You will know exactly what to do next. This is not about feeling better. This is about seeing clearly. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You've been taught 2 opposing lies, and both of them have kept you trapped. The first lie is the prosperity gospel, that faith is a transaction, that God is obligated to make you wealthy if you believe correctly, give generously, and declare boldly enough. The second lie is the poverty gospel, that money is inherently suspicious, that struggling financially is somehow more spiritual, that wanting increase is evidence of worldliness. Both lies do the same thing. They disconnect faith from financial stewardship. They make you passive. They teach you to wait for God to do what He already gave you the authority and wisdom to manage. Here's what Scripture actually says. Luke 16:10-11. One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. If then you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? Did you catch that? Jesus didn't say, don't worry about money, just focus on spiritual things. He said the opposite. He said, your handling of money reveals whether you're ready for greater spiritual responsibility. Money isn't a distraction from faithfulness. It's a test of it. And most believers are failing that test not because they lack faith, but because they've never been taught that faith operates through systems, not miracles. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. A woman, faithful, prayerful, committed, works as a teacher. She tithes, but inconsistently, because some months she can't predict what's left after bills. She gives offerings when she feels moved. She prays over her finances. She trusts God. And yet, year after year, she's in the same place. Why? Not because she isn't faithful, but because she has no financial structure, no budget, no plan, no system. She's trying to steward money emotionally, and emotions are the worst financial guide you can follow. Studies in behavioral finance confirm this. People who operate financially by feeling rather than structure consistently overspend, undersave, and live in reactive anxiety. The research is clear. Financial stability doesn't come from income. It comes from order. Proverbs 21:5 says, the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. Notice the word plans, not prayers, not declarations. Plans. That's not unspiritual. That's the way God designed increase to work. He didn't design it to drop from the sky while you wait passively. He designed it to grow through consistent, structured, intentional obedience. Order precedes increase. Chaos repels blessing. That's not a suggestion. That's a financial law written into creation itself. So here's what needs to rewire in your mind right now. Money is not a moral test. It's a system. It operates by laws. Biblical laws, economic laws, psychological laws. And when you treat it like a mystery instead of a system, you will stay confused. When you treat budgeting like it's unspiritual, you will stay broke. When you give inconsistently, spend emotionally, and avoid planning because God will provide, you're not exhibiting faith. You're exhibiting financial irresponsibility dressed in religious language. Stop waiting for provision. You're not structured to steward. Stop praying for increase while rejecting the discipline that sustains it. Stop thinking that because you're faithful in worship, you can be chaotic with your wallet. That's not how this works. Faith doesn't replace structure. Faith is expressed through structure. And the moment you start treating your money like a system that requires order, attention, and planning, you'll stop wondering why nothing's changing. You'll know exactly why it wasn't, and exactly what to do next. This is the revelation most believers never get. But now you have it, and it changes everything. Now we move from understanding to obedience, because revelation without application is just information that makes you feel smart while your bank account stays the same. Scripture doesn't give you truth so you can admire it. It gives you truth so you can build with it. And what most believers don't realize is that faith, real faith, operates through systems. It's not passive. It's not emotional. It's structured, intentional, and disciplined. Faith is the confident decision to align your resources with God's design, knowing that obedience to His order produces results that chaos never could. Proverbs 27:23-24 says, "Know well the condition of your flocks, and give attention to your herds, for riches do not last forever." In ancient terms, that's livestock. In modern terms, that's your income, your expenses, your savings, your debt. The instruction is direct. Know the condition of your resources. Not guess, not hope, not pray vaguely and assume it'll work out. No. That requires attention. It requires tracking. It requires a system. And if you don't have one, you're not trusting God. You're neglecting what He told you to steward. Luke 14:28-30 makes this even clearer. Jesus says, "For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, everyone who sees it begins to mock him, saying, 'This man began to build and was not able to finish.'" That's not a parable about construction. That's a parable about planning. Jesus is saying that starting something without counting the cost is foolishness. And if planning is required to build a tower, how much more is it required to build a life? Here's the metaphor you need to understand. Your money is not a mystery. It's an army. Every dollar is a soldier. And soldiers without orders scatter. Soldiers without discipline desert. Soldiers without a commander lose the battle before it begins. A budget is not restrictive. It's a battle plan. It tells every dollar where to go, what to do, and when to move. Giving becomes automatic, not emotional. Saving becomes consistent, not accidental. Spending becomes intentional, not reactive. This is not about control. This is about command. And if you don't take command of your money will take command of you. So here are your orders. Write down every dollar you earn, every single one. Then assign every dollar a purpose before the month begins. Giving comes first. Automate it. Savings comes second. Automate it. Bills, necessities, priorities, structure them. What's left is discretionary, and even that has boundaries. Stop treating your budget like it's unspiritual or restrictive. It's the opposite. It's the tool that turns your faith into action and your intentions into outcomes. Stop spending emotionally. Stop giving inconsistently. Stop avoiding financial planning because it feels unspiritual or uncomfortable. That discomfort isn't conviction. It's resistance to the discipline that creates the stability you keep praying for. Obedience to financial order doesn't just change your bank account. It changes your identity. It turns you from someone who reacts to money into someone who governs it. And when you govern your resources according to God's design, increase doesn't have to chase you down. It has a place to land. Money is a system governed by laws. Wisdom attracts resources. Chaos repels increase. You can't obey your way into financial stability if your obedience has no structure. Faith expressed through discipline is unstoppable. Faith expressed through passivity is invisible. You've been faithful. Now it's time to be structured. And when you combine the two, you won't just see change. You'll become the kind of person change follows. This is what alignment looks like. And alignment is where breakthrough begins. This is no longer about information. This is about decision, because everything you've heard in the last 3 blocks has brought you to this moment. The moment where neutrality ends and responsibility begins. You now know why faithful people struggle financially. You now know that faith without structure is chaos dressed as devotion. You now know that God never designed you to wait passively for provision. He designed you to steward actively what He's already entrusted to you. And now that you know, you can't unknow. You can only decide what you're going to do with what you've seen. Proverbs 13:22 says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." Not just to his children, to his children's children. That's generational thinking. That's legacy. And here's what most believers miss. Your financial disorder doesn't just affect you. It teaches your children chaos. It normalizes instability. It trains the next generation to view money as something unpredictable, something to fear, something to avoid planning for. Your lack of structure becomes their inheritance. And when you stand before God, you won't just answer for what you did with your resources. You'll answer for what you taught your children to do with theirs. Matthew 25:14-30 tells the parable of the talents. A master entrusts resources to 3 servants. 2 invest, multiply, and are called faithful. 1 buries his talent out of fear and is called wicked and slothful. Notice what made him wicked. Not stealing, not squandering, but doing nothing. Passivity was judged as rebellion. And here's the weight of that. Every month you avoid creating a budget. Every time you give inconsistently. Every moment you refuse to structure your finances because it feels uncomfortable or unspiritual. You are that servant. You're not being neutral. You're being disobedient. And disobedience doesn't get a pass just because it's wrapped in religious language. Here's the final law you need to understand. Wealth without wisdom is instability. Wisdom without wealth is stewardship waiting. You don't need more money to start obeying. You need to start obeying with what you have. An increase will follow order. That's not a promise that you'll be rich. That's a guarantee that you'll be faithful. And faithfulness is what God rewards. Not with comfort, but with greater responsibility, greater capacity, and greater purpose. So here's what happens next. You're going to make a declaration, not to impress anyone, not because it sounds good, but because spoken obedience solidifies internal commitment. Say this out loud, right now, wherever you are. I will no longer treat my finances like a mystery. I will structure what God has given me. I will budget, plan, give, and save with intention. I will stop waiting for provision I'm not ready to steward. I am responsible, and I will act like it. Now, here's your next move. Subscribe to this channel, because what you've heard today is not the end, it's the beginning. Comment below and write your declaration. Let it be public. Let it be real. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because this message doesn't just change individuals. It changes families, communities, generations. And finally, take one immediate action today. Open a spreadsheet. Write down your income. List your expenses. Assign every dollar a purpose. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until it's convenient. Obedience doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It acts in the middle of imperfect ones. You are not a victim of your finances. You are a steward. And stewards don't complain. They manage. They don't wish. They build. They don't wait. They act. This is your moment. This is your decision. And everything that happens next depends on what you do with what you now know. Faithful people struggle financially not because God is withholding, but because they've been waiting for Him to do what He already commanded them to steward. Stop waiting. Start building. And watch what God does with a life that's finally aligned.